Today, I'm bringing to you a very special podcast where we have a teenager talking about what stresses the teenagers, what helps them, and what doesn't. So, today I have with me, I think, an almost 16-year-old teenager. So, my first question, why are teenagers so stressed out today? What do you think are the key factors?
I think the biggest factors are pressures from school, pressures from home life, obviously, parents, siblings, of friendship problems as well. And the older you get, then there's a lot more stress about work, schoolwork, exams, thinking about what you want to do with your life, where you want to live. So you're kind of becoming an adult, so it can be very stressful for a child.
So, you said there are three things there is school, there is family, and there is friends.
Yeah.
So, all of these are stressful at some points and maybe pleasurable
Yeah.
in other moments as well. What do you think can help the teenagers today to maintain a perfect balance between these three factors?
I think it all comes from your time management, essentially. So the better you manage your time, if you get enough sleep, you eat properly, drink water, make sure you have an equal balance of these things. Don't expose yourself to too much time with your friends or too much studying, because doing too much of one thing can lead to an imbalance in the other. So it means that you won't enjoy this, you'll have no energy, you'll be tired, and you won't interact with people the same way you might if you were happier or in a better mood. So
Time management, healthy life, balance are a few things you said. It's not easy.
yeah.
It's easier said than done.
Also own your own kind of perspective of yourself. So honestly, it sounds very generic when you say this, but the thoughts that you think about yourself, about others, if you think things like, okay, I've got to get this done, I'm going to enjoy doing this. If you you can trick your mind into saying, okay, I'm going to study now, I'm going to do this. If you can change your mind, then you can actually do the task. So it all just depends if you have the willpower to do it.
So, you just spoke about the mind, time management, healthy balance, right? Which can help you in success. You're almost 16 right now. Do you think you have struck that balance?
Honestly, I don't think it's definitely not easy. It's not an easy thing to do. And I don't think anyone can fully be 100% balanced. You have ups and downs. Some days you're not. Sometimes you go through different phases where it doesn't seem to be working out. But the biggest thing to remember is that in life, when you have periods, like low periods, it's just life. Something will bring it back up. So for me, I think recently I have found myself to be a lot more balanced than usual. It's just balance in terms of sports, physical activity, my own mental well-being, problems at home, friendship problems are all pretty balanced, very calm right now. But then that can obviously change really quickly. And it's not about that. The change is fine. If it changes, it changes. And sometimes it becomes more turbulent, but it's not about what happens, it's about how you react to it. So if you react in a controlled manner, in a more assertive manner than to these changes happening, because you cannot control these things, then that's just going to help you stay more balanced.
So, I'm sure you went in your life through a moment when you were not happy with family, friends, schoolwork, pressure from school. How did you deal with it? Because I know a lot of whatever parents say, it's not good, parents are bad. For teenagers, parents are a big taboo. What was the age you felt that, and how did you deal with it?
I think I mostly felt that around when I was 12 to 14, maybe, those ages, because of that. Obviously, that's a really tough time for kids. That's when you're transitioning. I mean, for me, I was transitioning from junior school to senior school. So it's a big change. There's a lot more work, there's a lot more pressure, and it is hard. Also, you're going through like changes, your body changes, your well-being changes, you're growing into a teenager essentially, that period from 12 to 14. So usually people say, oh, your teenagers are moody, they're those kind of things, very negative attributes to kids that age. And It does make sense because parents start treating you like you're more grown up. You're not a child anymore, but you're not old enough to make your own decisions. As in, you don't choose your subjects yet. You still have to do things at school, and there's lots of pressures on you. So I felt at that age like I was being very dominated by pressures to have friends. I mean, it's not always easy. There's so many different personalities and so many different people in the world that it is so hard to find your place. So that time, it's a big time of exploration and self-development, and it takes time, but eventually you do get there, especially going through things like peer influences, what your friends are doing, morally right, wrong things teenagers go through, and also it depends on how your parents react to it, things like that.
So you said you are, and I agree that teenagers are set out in the world to be treated as adults, but you're still kids. Right? So do you think it makes sense for parents to lay boundaries for teenagers?
I think it's important for parents to lay boundaries, but I found that from what I know amongst my friends, when parents set too many boundaries, it causes the child to feel really negative emotions, like they feel like they're being like put down, oppressed. It just makes them want to rebel, makes them want to come back up, because they feel like they're put under so much pressure that they can't even breathe, without these rules and regulations. Like, we get a lot of that from school anyways. So it's always better to be, and these are the kids that end up not really going through it and really having a bad experience, because when your home life and your school life is really negative and really restricted, then it's really bad for the kid, especially as a teenager. So it is important for the parents not to be too laid back. Obviously, you have to have some rules for the child, because we are still children and we can't just be allowed to do whatever we want, within reason, obviously within reason, but it is important to have boundaries. But also work with the child. So there's no point just going to your child and being like, oh, you're not allowed to go out after this time. You can never go out. Study. There's no point doing that. It just makes the child want to not do that. So it's really important to work with the child, have a conversation. You treat the child like you're equal. That really helps when you're setting rules and boundaries, because the child will become, the teenager, we will be more rational with you. We will be more reasonable. Be like, okay, well, they're saying I need to study more. I can do that. So if it's a mutual agreement between both, it's much better and more pleasant for both people.
Okay, so the parents have to be more rational with the children and help them understand.
Compromise.
Talk to them. So as a parent, we know that teenagers are not fully developed, as you just said. Social media is a very strong tool. It's a very powerful tool. Can have a positive and a negative impact. What is your take on social media for teenagers?
Honestly, I feel like social media is a really ineffective use of time. There are so many better things you could be doing, and there's so much research, so many studies have proven it is so mentally draining. So in a world where there's so many other factors that are mentally draining, you should put your spare time into doing activities that actually focus on recharging yourself. So people say like mindfulness things, sports are such a good idea. Just listen to music, just be with your own thoughts. So much external influence, it's not good for your brain. You have so much information to take in life from everyone around you. So putting in that, and you don't even know the information is accurate. Sometimes you hear things, see things, really negative things on social medias. There's really bad influences there. People are people. There is very good influences. So lots of people like motivational speakers, things like that. It's very good for you. But there's other things you can do to get that information. Listen to podcasts as well, instead of being staring at a screen for a long time. And put for the right reasons. A lot of teenagers these days are learning really how to capitalize on social media. So giving like self-help talks for teenagers, being relatable, things like that, just sharing their experiences. But then the other side of it is it's just not great for self-esteem as well.
Agreed. And there is a very thin line between what you can do with social media and not. Parents often find it as a challenge because teenagers, it's peer pressure. You have to be on certain apps to belong.
Yeah.
How do you think parents should talk to their teenage kids to help them understand? Because in most cases, they're butting heads.
Yes, that does happen because certain parents, it is difficult when your friend, for example, their parents say, okay, you know what, have whatever you want. You can have any app, no screen time, go do what you want. Versus another child whose parents do not like social media and do not want that. It's a very stark difference, and it makes the child really compare themselves to the other child and be like, they're allowed to have these liberties, but I'm not allowed. And it makes the child honestly feel like the parents don't trust them enough. But then the question is like, do you trust yourself enough to be able to have that full liberty? Because I know a lot of people don't. And when you're younger, when social media is trending, things like that, like as the years go by, the age that kids are getting onto these apps gets younger and younger every year. And honestly, I think it's a really bad thing. These kids are really focused on social media, and the kids that don't have it because their parents, you're too young. There's an age limit for a reason that you cannot have this app. Those kids often feel really left out because there's trends, people have group chats, they talk to each other and stuff, things happen online that you're not aware of, and you can really feel like you don't belong. But it does get better, which is what most children don't realize. The older you get, the less you're gonna get attacked for not using it or anything like that, feel like you don't belong, because you realize that there's no relationship. You don't form connections on social media, you form them in person. And if your friend is someone who they make you feel bad because you don't have this, or you're not on Snapchat so much, then are they even worth being your friends?
So do you have access to all social media apps that you may want to, or you have been restricted?
I have been restricted. Initially, when I was younger, during that phase I said 12 to 14, not a great phase. It was a phase where everyone was on social media at like maybe 13 years old, so I was not allowed. So I had very tight restrictions on it. I found that all of us were overusing it a lot, so screen time was going through the roof. It was just a really unhealthy amount that kids in my school were on it, especially in my grade. So you guys put screen time, you told me delete the app, don't have the app. There are certain apps which I'm not allowed to have, but then I used to really rebel. I did not like it. I would just be honestly, with people, it's just like a human rule, that when you take something away from someone, they want it even more. So when you take that social media away from the kid, they want it even more, because humans want things that they cannot have. Something the unreachable, something so valuable, because you're putting so much value by saying you are not allowed to go on this app. You're putting way too much importance and value on an app, and it should not have that importance. It's making the child go, oh my god, my parents really don't want me on this, it must be so important, I really want to go on it now. Honestly, and I think you would have found that when you guys gave me a lot more liberties with it, like as in now on weekdays, I have time limit on it. I don't have complete access to my social media, which I think is good because it means I don't just get distracted during school days. But on weekends, it's completely open. And if you were to check how much while that I have access to it, I barely even use it. So obviously not everyone is like that, but I'd say with most people it is.
But what helped you understand this, that what your parents took away was the right thing to do? What helped you understand that?
Once you guys stopped being so disciplined on the fact that this is not allowed at all, that's when, once you like become more lax about it, more liberal, be like, okay, you can have this for this amount a day, what I was saying earlier, the compromise. So actually having those conversations, saying, do you really feel like you need this? How long do you feel like you need this? It makes the child actually be rational and be like, okay, so you're asking me how much time I think I need. And it makes the child realize, okay, I don't even need that much time on it. Because the child is not gonna go throw a tantrum and be like, oh, I want it completely open. No, they'll probably be like, okay, you know what? Maybe an hour a day, 30 minutes a day, maybe like 30 minutes on school days, open on the weekends. I think I can trust myself like that, and slowly work yourself to the point where you're used to not rebelling against not having it, but also being content and accepting the fact that you don't need it.
Perfect. Mental health is another very strong word in the teenage dictionary. Why is it so?
Because teenagers, honestly, I feel like we just took experience from the fact that our parents grew up in a generation where mental health was something so stigmatized. So you could not just say, you know what, I feel really anxious right now. I'm so stressed. I feel really depressed right now, things like that. You guys were not open about it. So kids have been seeing their parents. A lot of cases, their parents don't express emotions in a healthy way. So there's conflicts. They don't express emotions properly. You don't admit when you need help. And I feel like that's a really good thing that my generation adopted, which is the fact that we're not scared. So if we're struggling, we will most likely just say it straight up and be like, you know what, I need help on this. I'm really struggling with this. We don't have a fear of saying it. It can get to the point where you see people saying it and you'd be like, oh, maybe I have this. It can get very stressful thinking about all these disorders, and people can be a bit sensitive. Honestly, people can be a bit sensitive about it. I think it's a very good thing that we're not afraid to ask for help. Instead of bottling the emotions, we're much more open. There's so much less stigma when it comes to going to therapy, talking to people, having mental health days, being able to just take a moment for yourself without feeling bad or stressed or people judging you about it.
I also feel that today's teenagers, if parents say anything, don't have the bandwidth to listen and accept or reason. They kind of say, go in a shell, don't want to talk, don't want to discuss. And they say, oh, we're under depression. Our parents understand mental health and well-being is super important today. Why is this attitude? Why have teenagers become so parents not been able to communicate with them?
Honestly, because we are putting together one generation which thrived on having a really insensitive outlook on things. As in, you guys were, just to list a few examples, you guys were just like more a bit fend for yourself, you make your own life for yourself, you know what I mean? Just things like that, self-reliance. You know, if someone is crying about this, if I'm unhappy, you know, keep working through it. So it is a lot of, you guys said resilience, and our generation is completely opposite. We say self-growth, self-development. It's okay to need time off, things like that. We're very liberal with what we do. So to put such a sensitive generation with an insensitive generation, or not insensitive, but a bit more emotionally apathetic generation, it means that when the kid is saying things like that, oh, I don't feel well, I'm depressed, things like that, the parents are just like, they don't know how to help because the child voices it, but it doesn't mean necessarily that it's communicated properly. So parents can sometimes be like, well, they can get mad, they can get frustrated, angry. My child isn't talking to me. My child is too sensitive because they're sitting around all day being lazy. Laziness is a thing which your generation specifically does despise. Our generation does not really consider it as laziness. My generation has been called a very lazy generation because social media, things like that. But it also has to do with external factors. The fact that when you guys were younger, you guys didn't have social media, you didn't have technology. These days, technology is so distracting and it's very hard for parents to deal with it because they don't know how to use it properly.
2 things you would want to change in your parents as a teenager, not in your actual parents, but as a teenager. What are the 2 or 3 things you feel parents should change in their parenting?
I feel like parents should not assume a really alpha dominating role that I am better than you because I am older. That does not resonate with a child at all. I am your parent, therefore you should listen to me. Humans, we don't work like that. It doesn't work that I am older than you, I'm better than you, so listen to me. That just builds defiance. It does not. When you listen to someone, you have respect for them. So if a parent wants a child to respect the parent, it has to be mutual. Respect it's not a one-way thing. If the parent is respectful, talks to the child, listens to the child, then you can expect those attributes to come back. So if you show it first, you guys are the role models. If they see it in their parents, then they will also mirror the same things back to you.
Fantastic. Focus. what can help teenagers bring back their focus? If there were one or two things you would want to tell us today.
Honestly, I really struggled with procrastination, and I think a lot of other teenagers do because of the whole social media thing. Why would I do my homework or study for this test when I could scroll on my phone or, I don't know, watch Netflix, things like that, sleep. The most important thing is you need to manage your time properly. People say, I don't have time. You do have time. That 1 hour in the morning which you slept like in, or maybe that 1 hour before sleeping where you were on your phone before sleeping, you need to take the time, sleep earlier, get up earlier, take time for yourself in the morning so you have a better day. When you come home from school, don't waste time. Get your work done, then you have your leisure time. Leisure should never come before finishing your tasks. If you have don't delay your work either. So if you have small 10-minute things you can get over with, your homework, for example, such minor things, get it over with, because then if they accumulate, you lose focus, and then you see those tasks building up and get overwhelmed and go, okay, well, I'm so overwhelmed, I can't deal with this right now, and just don't do anything. You just shut down. Don't do anything, which means you had a completely unproductive, ineffective day, which makes you in turn feel worse. It's honestly good. We have so many techniques now. We have these Pomodoro timers, clock. You can literally use apps on your phone for this. So scheduling apps, it really helps time blocking. So you get home from school at 4, set out this time. So 4 to 5, I'll do my homework. 5 to 6, I'll read a book. Maybe 6 to 7, I can watch some Netflix, just relax for myself. And then later on, 7 to 8, do a sport, do an activity, meditate, things like that. So if you do time blocking or use timers like I do when I study, it's really helpful.
Okay, great, fantastic. And now is your time to choose your careers, right? What helped you decide? Or even if you haven't decided, what do you think can help you decide what you really want to do?
Honestly, kids, we grew up hearing about the same 4 or 5 careers, which are very generic careers: doctor, lawyer, psychology, medicine. These are essentially the only things we hear, but there are so many more careers. There are so many more careers that we are not even aware of. So it's really important that you don't focus on just doing what everyone else is doing. You need to focus on your interests. You're saying you want to be a doctor, but you hate chemistry. You don't want to do chemistry. Then maybe you have to look into another career. Maybe you fit into a career that you didn't even know existed. There's fields, these people don't fit into boxes sometimes. There's categories: entrepreneurship, business, where you have freedom to do your own thing. A lot of universities, especially in the US, say you don't even have to decide your major for the first year of your school. So unless you're 100%, if you're not 100% set on something, and the biggest thing is it's okay that you're not. So when you have to choose your subjects, yes, it does make an impact it limits your options, yes, but then that's life. So you have to make certain decisions, and there's always alternatives. So you can always do other things. Let's say you didn't take this course, you can do the course externally, do it in your own time. Do activities revolving that course. So it's not a very rigid structure like that. You can always do things to foster your interests, and it is a very big struggle choosing your subjects because you're scared of cutting out options for yourself. You always have the option to take it, if not now, later in life.
Absolutely, and it's okay not to decide so early. It's okay to change, and change is always good. Awesome. So thank you so much for your time. It was really insightful, and wishing you good luck.